Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about the new movie, Knock at the Cabin. Knock at the Cabin is directed by M. Night Shyamalan and is based on the book written by Paul Tremblay. This movie looked intriguing, so I thought I would check it out. The synopsis is as follows. While vacationing at a remote cabin in the woods, a young girl and her parents are taken hostage by four armed strangers who demand they make an unthinkable choice to avert the apocalypse. Confused, scared, and with limited access to the outside world, the family must decide what they believe before all is lost. So without further ado, let's get into the 6 things that make a movie great. 1. The plot. This family goes to this cabin in the middle of the woods to go on vacation and kind of get away from everything, when almost immediately their daughter Wynn, while catching grasshoppers, is approached by this strange man named Leonard. Fast forward a few minutes and now this family is held captive inside the cabin by 4 people who claim that these 3 have to choose someone to sacrifice among themselves, otherwise the world will end. And for every time that they say no, a new plague or disaster is released upon the world. Going into the movie, pretty much exactly what I thought was going to happen happened. Shyamalan threw in a very slight informative twist at the end, but it didn't do much for me. And it kind of seemed like the whole movie hinged on that twist being like an oh my gosh moment, and it just wasn't. And the other thing had to do with the family. The movie follows the source material as the family is a homosexual couple with their adopted daughter Wynn. And I'm sure it must have played out well in the book, but it being translated to screen didn't really work. Because with the movie adaptation of this, it seemed like the only reason why they chose to make this couple homosexual was so that they could use the excuse, this isn't the apocalypse, you're just homophobic. In fact, it's one of the main arguments against taking action against the apocalypse the entire movie, and I just didn't think it was that strong of a subtone in the movie. Again, I haven't read the book, so I don't know how it plays out in the book, but Shyamalan's rendition of it into movie form just didn't translate very well in my opinion. There also happened to be a plot moment that involved a gun, and what happened with it was one of the stupidest things that I've ever seen in film, and I literally face palmed in the middle of the movie, and I wasn't the only one. I heard face palms all around the theater. You'll know it if you see it. So with all those things in mind, for me, plot gets a 50-50. 2 is family friendliness. Knock at the Cabin is rated R, and while there are a handful of deaths and scary moments in this film, I think the main reason why it's rated R is because of profanity. There's some blood and gore, there's a suicide that takes place, but the overall nature of this film makes it not family friendly, so family friendliness gets a thumbs down. 3 is acting and script. To be completely honest with you, most of the acting performances in this movie were bland. The only one that stood out to me was Dave Bautista as Leonard. I kind of like Bautista, and his transition from wrestling to actor I think was probably one of the best that I've seen, but there are those that argue that he plays the same character in every movie. Maybe I just prefer the movies that he chooses to be in. I don't know. But for me, his acting performance was the best by far in this film. No one else stood out or did anything incredible. The script of this movie was okay. Most of the interactions between characters were fine. I thought that the dynamic between the captors and the family was really strange and interesting. And there were a couple funny moments here and there. But in this case, for me, acting and script gets a 50-50. 4 is character development. Nope, not even close. There's about a 1-minute montage where they try to exposition dump on you all the information about everyone, but it doesn't provide any deep character development whatsoever. And as far as the family goes, I mean, you think they're developed, right? No. M. Night Shyamalan used a few very ineffective flashbacks in this movie to try to build up the character development or understanding of the family and what's going on. And it was some of the most worthless flashbacks that I've seen. Again, it gave little tiny glimpses of backstory, but there was no development here whatsoever. To the point where you honestly don't care about anyone in this movie. The only person I found myself caring for at all was Leonard, and that's probably because he had the most lines in the movie. The character development in this movie was terrible. Character development for me gets a thumbs down. 5 is visuals and CGI. There's a couple things to talk about here. 1, for some reason, M. Night Shyamalan had this fixation with zooming up incredibly close on people's faces for the entire movie. In fact, the first 5 minutes of the movie, their faces are like this. Just zoomed up so ridiculously close that you can see everyone's skin issues and nose hairs. And I don't know if he thought that it was going to be artsy or it's going to set this movie apart. It was just weird. In addition to that, you're stuck inside the cabin for pretty much the whole movie. And what I always talk about with movies like this is that you need exceptional acting performances and an incredible script in order to make movies like this work. And this movie didn't have that. There was some CGI in this movie and it was decent. It wasn't the worst part of the movie. But this movie tried a few different things to try to set it apart visually, and for me it struck out pretty badly. For me, visuals and CGI get a thumbs down. And 6 is rewatchability. Knock at the Cabin is an hour and 40 minutes long, but unfortunately since you're stuck in the cabin, you kind of felt like you were stuck in the movie for a bit longer than that. This movie classifies itself as a mystery horror film, but if I had any say in it, it'd be considered a mystery drama. Some of the tension is good, sometimes it leaves you wondering, but like I said, as soon as I went in this movie, I knew what was going to happen. They didn't lean into the mystery enough to make you really wonder what was going on. While this movie was interesting in concept, I just think that M. Night Shyamalan didn't deliver it. And honestly, that's kind of the story of his life. He either has movies that are really good and end up having a cult following, or his movies just kind of fall flat on their face and are forgotten about pretty quickly. And unfortunately, this movie falls to the latter. For me, rewatchability gets a thumbs down. With all these areas considered, I have to give Knock at the Cabin a 5 out of 10. This movie had some decent potential, it was interesting at first, and the twist at the end really could have worked if they had done a better job with the rest of the movie. But unfortunately, the acting performances were bland, the script was bland, the flashbacks were worthless, and you arrive at the end of the movie like, oh, that was supposed to be the twist? That was supposed to make it interesting? Oh, bummer, dude. So with that being said, I would definitely not recommend going to watch this movie in theaters, and if any part of that sounded interesting to you, I'd probably direct you to read the book. Thank you so much for watching. If you've seen Knock at the Cabin, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. As always, I appreciate your love and support, and I'll catch you guys and gals in the next one.